So according to this Forbes article, housing market trends, what's happening with mortgage rates and housing prices right now. What is the housing market doing? Why should you care? And what can you do about it? Well, I'm about to tell you. It's good to see you. Thanks for stopping by. John O here, selling North Dallas real estate. Hope you're doing well. If you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button, turn on notifications, and hit the like button right there. It'll give you a little confetti. It'll make you feel good. It'll make me feel good. Lets us know we're doing a good job. That's not why you're here. Let's talk about this housing market. Every week we talk about what are interest rates doing? What's the local market doing here in North Dallas, specifically Collin County. We've got a free market update tool. I'll tell you how to get to that in just a minute. But I want to go through this Forbes article. Let's talk about what interest rates are doing. Hopefully this will arm you as you move into the real estate market, whatever that means for you. All right, this article was written yesterday, October 9th, 2022. One of the things I like about these Forbes articles is they'll put some key takeaways at the front. And what I want to do is just, I want you and I to go through this article together, and I want to give you my 2 cents. We sell a lot of real estate here, and all that really means, no brag, is that just means that we have a finger on the pulse of what the market is doing here locally. So let's see if we agree with what Forbes is talking about. Now, in fairness, this is a national publication, and some of the things that they're going to talk about here do not apply in our local market, but let's go through that together. I don't want this to be conjecture. I want this to be factual. Key takeaways. Here we go. Home prices are most likely to hold over the next year, according to Goldman Sachs, though they have inflated by 43% since before the pandemic. Now, has Goldman Sachs ever got anything wrong?
Is that a joke?
But that's not important. Let's just, here's, I had an old mentor of mine teach me, chew up the meat and spit out the bone.
It's a valuable lesson.
All systems are broken. Some systems are useful. So let's just let this wash over us, and then we'll give feedback as we go. Okay, the Fed's rate hikes have made borrowing money more expensive, and rates are only expected to get higher over the next 12 months. Well, today, rates for a 30-year fixed mortgage on the conventional side, 7.12%, and 30-year FHA, 6.62. Now, if you've never bought a house or you're not exactly sure what that means, the interest rate on a given timeline tells you how much money you're going to pay for the house in total. For example, I've got my 10B2 calculator here. So the 10B2 will tell us what our purchase price, if we at a given purchase price and a given interest rate, what we will pay for that home over the life of the loan. So for example, let's just use 7.12. I just shot a video about Salina, Texas, and the median home price over the last 90 days from today in Salina, Texas is $625,000. So let's use that as our purchase price. So I'm going to type in $625,000 as my purchase price. Let's say you're going to put 10% down, just for round numbers. So if we multiply 625, I think there's a way I can pull this up on my screen. So let's say our purchase price is $625,000. You're gonna put some money down. Let's say for giggles, we're gonna do 10% down. So we're gonna multiply that times 0.9, which gives us a mortgage amount of $562,500. Okay, so we're gonna plug that in as our PV. Now let's say our interest rate is 7.12, and we're gonna do 360 months, which is 30 years. So if we wanna calculate our payment, our principal and interest payment, so this is not the total payment, this is just the principal and interest portion. Our principal and interest portion is $3,787.77. Now, if we want to look at the amortization schedule, we can see we will actually pay over the life of the loan $1.363 million paid over the lifetime of that loan. If we take it all the way to 30 years, this is a real estate channel. We're getting into mortgages, but hopefully this is helpful. Over the lifetime of the loan, our principal amount, what we actually borrowed from the bank, was $562,501.84, which means we had an additional, because we're paying 7.12% in interest, we have an additional $801,095.36 just in interest, or all in $1.363 million paid for that house. So this is an argument some people will make for not purchasing a home, because they'll say, is it a let's say 1.4, let's round up the 1.363 to 1.4 just for argument's sake. Is it a $1.4 million house? No, it's a $625,000 house that you paid for twice because of interest. Like, it's math. You cannot argue with math.
Can't argue with that.
The difference is when you calculate in appreciation. So right now, a 30-year interest rate, where's my mouse? There it is. 7.12%, or 30-year FHA is 6.62. Rates are only expected to get higher over the next 12 months. Here's the thing. Is the crystal ball accurate? Now, you can look at several metrics to try to ascertain or anticipate what interest rates are going to do. The truth is, nobody knows. We can guess, we can make calculated guesses. For the sake of argument, I'm not going to argue with that. Do I think interest rates are going to continue to go up? Yes, I do. I think rates are going to continue to go up, and then they're going to come back down, just like gas prices. What do gas prices do? They go up, and then they come back down. Suffice to say, do I think interest rates are going to continue to go up? Yes. Have I ever been wrong? Yes. I was wrong once back in high school just to see what it was like. It was terrible. I'm kidding.
Ha ha ha.
Of course I've been wrong. I'm wrong on this stuff all the time. The true metric is what has happened in the past. Now, we can try to guess, but really smart people get this wrong all the time. And we talked about on a recent market update video, there's two factors that you got to look at. You got to look at the logical stuff. Is it a good time to buy based on interest rates? Is it a good time to sell my home based on equity? Do I want more bedrooms? Do I want a pool? Do I want more land? Those are logical things. Most of the time, that in and of itself is not reason enough for someone to make a move because of all the hassles. But there's usually, if we have all the logical stuff on this side and all the emotional stuff on this side, usually this side is what tips the scales. But then they justify it at cocktail parties. Well, it was just a good time to cash in, so blah, blah, blah. But what they don't want to talk about is all the nitty gritty, nasty, dirty, emotional stuff, because nobody cares. Back to the article. Okay. If you must purchase a home over the next year, rates are likely to be lower now than they will be in coming months. I love it when people say, real estate agents always say the same thing. Now is a good time to buy. Well, why do you think that is? Actually, don't answer that question. That's kind of a ridiculous statement because we're not any different than any other profession. A major difference in our world is there's two sides. There's the logical side and there's the emotional side, and you have to factor both. I talk to people all the time. We want to buy $1 million home. We want to be in Prosper, Texas. We want this, and we start doing discovery and come to find out they have no business logically buying that house. They can justify all day long why they want the house and what they feel like it says to them. My job is not to convince them to buy or to not buy, but in scenarios where people are telling me, I've had people say, you know, we've worked really hard, we really deserve it. I tell those people, hey, I appreciate how you feel on the emotional side of the house, but based on this, and this, I think it would be a bad idea for you to buy a house right now. I think you should rent right now until you can get some of these other factors in order. Back to the article. If you must purchase a home over the next year, rates are likely to be lower now than they will be in the coming months. Now, they don't say how many months because they don't know. If they knew, they would be selling subscriptions. Look at the subscribe button way up here. They'd be selling subscriptions left and right? They'd be selling courses. Nobody knows. We can guess. Forbes can guess, but nobody knows for sure. But when you look at all the factors, rates are going to continue to go up. Over the past 2 years, the housing market has experienced extreme demand and limited supply, which has led to massive price hikes over a short period. Go back and watch the videos that we've done. Everything is talking about supply and demand. Now, you may not like what the housing market did over the last 18 months, 2 years, but the reason that the prices were so high is because the market demand said, hey, you can charge more for that house. And sellers, listening to their real estate agents, just kept pushing the envelope and prices went through the roof. And what's happening now? Well, we'll get into that here in just a second when we jump into the market update tool. At the same time, inflation has ballooned across the world, including here in the US. To get inflation under control, the Federal Reserve started raising interest rates in March, making borrowing more expensive on top of higher base prices. How is today's landscape different from 2 years ago? In 2020, the average list price of an American home was $374,000, with average interest rates on a 30-year mortgage sitting at 3.11%. Today, the average interest rate is 7.06%. That was yesterday. Today, it's gone up to 7.12, with the average home prices up to $525,000. That means if you purchased a home 2 years ago with a 30-year mortgage and 20% down, the average purchase price would have cost you $536,000 in principal and interest over the course. Okay, I love it when the battery dies and you gotta restart the jammy. That's okay. Batteries die. The world is an imperfect place.
Screws fall out all the time. The world's an imperfect place.
This means if you purchased a home 2 years ago with a 30-year mortgage and 20% down, the average purchase price would cost you $536,551 in principal and interest over the course of your loan. So let's check their math.
Scan complete. Analyzing data.
Their math doesn't line up. Come on, Forbes. So here's what they're saying. In 2020, the average list price on an American home was $374,000 with a 30-year interest rate of 3.11. Today, the average is this with the purchase price of this. That means if you purchased a home 2 years ago at this price with a 30-year mortgage and 20% down, the average purchase would have cost you $536 in principal and interest over the course of your loan. That's simply not true. If you type in $374,500 into the 10B2 and you put 20% down, so you're multiplying that times 0.8, your loan amount would be $299,600. So if we plug that in as our principal value with an interest rate of 3.11%, our payment would be $1,280.97. $1,280.97. Hopefully you can see that. And if we look at the amortization schedule, the total paid is $461,149. Can you see that? 461. So I don't see where they're coming up with 525. All right, well let's see if this math is right. If we're going off of today's average interest rate of 7.06 and the average home price of 525. So if we're gonna go 525 times 0.8, I'm assuming we're still putting 20% down, is 420. Okay, 420. And then our average interest rate of 7.06. So our payment is $2,811. 30-year mortgage, 7.06 interest rate, $420,000 principal value, a payment of $2,811.22. And the amortization schedule says principal amount is $420. In interest, we had $592,000 for a total paid of $1,012,039.20. So this says 1.1. I mean, they rounded up 900,000. But let's not get hung up on semantics. That's a difference of over $500,000 by the time you're done paying off your mortgage. Well, that is true. Let me ask you a question. Let's say this is your scenario. Let's say you buy a $525,000 home and you have an interest rate of 7%. How long would it take you to refinance that and to get a better interest rate? Now, if we look at interest rates, here's one from New York Times. So the last time we were there was, let's say 2000. So that was 22 years ago. Now, what did rates do? From 2000, they drop. So let's say we're right back here. Interest rates are on the upswing. They got down around, let's say, the 5s right here, and they're climbing, you're climbing, and you bought right here, and you had a 7% interest rate. And then rates drop down into the 4s. Would you keep your 7% interest rate? And then they come back up, and then they drop. Let's say you refinance. Let's say you weren't smart enough to refinance. You just you're making so much money, you didn't care. It slipped your mind, right? That happens. That's plausible. So interest rates creep up, and then they start creeping down again into the 4s, into the 3s. You're like, oh crap, we missed it. Everybody's telling you, refinance. And you said, no, it's dropping. You finally decided to pay attention, and you said, it's dropping. I'm going to wait until it gets to the tippy bottom. Tippy bottom. That's what they called me in high school.
Oh my God, me too.
Oh, and what happened right here? 2013, 2014. You're timing it, and boom, it jumps up back into the, let's say, 4.5. You're like, shit, I missed it. Keep in mind, you have a 7% interest rate, and seemingly overnight, bam, it jumps up from in the mid 3s to the mid 4s. This continues to come down. Boom, you miss it again. It drops down. Boom, it jumps up here to, let's say, 5%. Bear in mind, what's your interest rate? You're still in the 7s. You're so stubborn. But you're like, nope, it's going to get better. It's going to get better. I'm great at timing the market, even though you've missed it a couple of times. Do you think at some point over that 20-year span, you would have refinanced?
Okay, I get your point.
Of course you would have. So part of the reason some of these articles are ridiculous is it assumes you're not going to refinance, you're going to keep your 7% interest rate over the next 30 years, and then they use that data to make other points, but people jump on real estate agents for all saying the same thing. Come on, man. Just think about it. Okay, let's keep going. Don't think too much. The average purchase price in the current market would cost you $1.1 million. No, it wouldn't. It would cost you $1,012,000, but whatever, Forbes. That's a difference of over $500,000 by the time you're done paying off your mortgage. Again, you would have refinanced. Interest rates are higher today because the Federal Reserve is attempting to curb inflation. Prices are high. Has the Federal Reserve never got that wrong? That's fine. We won't dive into that. Prices are higher for a few reasons. First, the U.S. was in a housing shortage prior to the pandemic. I think we all know that's true. During the pandemic, many white-collar workers decided to relocate with the newfound freedom of remote work. This also increased demand and drove up prices via bidding wars. Is that why they moved? Did they move because they could live anywhere, so why not live somewhere cheaper? I can't tell you the number of people that I've spoken with over the phone in states like California, in states like New York that said, we have had it. With the mandates, with the political climate, with the homeless, like we are out of here and we want to come to Texas. Did the fact that the cost of living was different change? Not really, because both of those markets were in comparable areas to the median purchase price in Collin County where they ultimately ended up moving to. It wasn't that big a difference. And sometimes I think people, they repeat things that they hear somebody else saying like, oh, they've got a $2 million shack in California. In some cases, yes, they can sell a home in California in a upcoming neighborhood or in an area where prices are inflated and come to an area with a lower cost of living, lower priced real estate. Yes, that happens. It's not day and night. Nevertheless, are home prices going down? This is a very popular question. When are prices going to drop? This might be a good time for us to jump into the market update tool. So check this out. Average days on market ticking up again. Slow. I mean, you can just look at the trend and see that the average days on market is creeping up. Median days on market, again, trending up. Now it'll trend up and then it'll flatten. It'll trend up and then it'll flatten. What's the difference in average and median? I'll let you Google that one. Price decreases, flattening out. Inventory, we were skyrocketing, it flattened out. Now it's starting to trend down just ever so gently. Oh, look at here, we're in the 40s. So if you've been watching the market updates, 100 is the crazy seller's market where we were back in May as we were turning that corner. And now we've gone from going 100 miles an hour to going 49 miles an hour. A buyer's market where there's more inventory than there are buyers to buy is at 30, we're at 49. And look, this metric here, this is not national. This is Collin County. If you look at other counties, it's going to be different. So it's vitally important if you're really in the market or you're really just like tinkering with the data, drop down in the description. There's a link you can download the Selling North Dallas Real Estate Market Update Tool brought to us by the good folks at Altos. And you can manipulate this stuff. They're just giving us the numbers and I'm showing you the report. This is not a report that I can manipulate. The numbers are the numbers. Okay, what did the article say? It's early yet to decide if home prices are on a downward trend. Again, this is a national publication. They're lumping San Francisco and LA and Austin and Littlefield, Texas and Muskegon, Michigan. They're lumping all of these into one article and trying to say nationally, are home prices going down? Well, what does the tool say? Price decreases are leveling out. You know what? Let me jump into the MLS here and let's just look at closed over the last 90 days. And we're gonna say Collin County. I'm gonna hit results. I'm gonna select all. Let's look at the stats. 565. So from the window of 3 months to 6 months ago, the median price was 565. Over the last 90 days, 525. So some people would look at that metric and say, aha, prices have decreased. Aha! But the reality is when you look at that 180 days, 3 months ago to 6 months ago, this window here was 525. That was an inflated time. So when there's a rush on toilet paper, right? Remember when COVID hit and you went to the store and there was no toilet paper? Or when you could find it, people were charging through the nose for toilet paper. Did the value of toilet paper go up? Yes, because there was a shortage, supply and demand. Anyway, we're getting off track. It's early yet to decide if home prices are on a downward trend. While home prices tend to have a seasonal downward shift as summer wears on, this year the numbers were larger than average. Usually we see a decrease of 2% from June through August, but this year that decrease was 6%. Seems promising for would-be buyers. I would agree. In August 2022, prices were 7.7% higher than they were at the same time in 2021. From a long-term perspective, home prices could still be rising. We'll have to wait and see the fall and winter numbers to have more definitive answers. This isn't real estate agents trying to convince you now's a good time to buy. I'm telling you, I don't know what's gonna happen. I can tell you what I think can happen, but this is Forbes is saying the exact same thing. We won't know until we get there and have more data to look at. Prices remain so high because there's a shortage of inventory. Again, this isn't the first time you've heard this. While new builds did increase 12.2% in August, we can attribute this partially to supply chain issues. Many builders were unable to get supplies they needed to work on their projects, and many of these supplies finally made it to them at the tail end of the summer in one big burst. We've got like 4 builds going right now from one builder, and everybody's out of brick and windows, and every one of our buyers are frustrated with this one builder who's a really great builder, but supply chain, we're still dealing with some of that stuff, as Forbes has pointed out. The article seems pretty legit, seems pretty on trend with what we're seeing. Just because we saw new builds go up last month doesn't mean they're going to increase inventory for American families. The bulk of the increase in inventory will be in the commercial markets, would-be landlords looking to rent new units to tenants. Many Americans have been priced out of the market as home prices have skyrocketed over the past 2 years. This means there's more demand in the rental market than usual. Heard that before? On the channel? Yes, I'm quite sure I read that somewhere.
Yes, I'm certain that I read that somewhere once.
This means there's more demand in the rental market than usual, so that's where developers have been focusing their energy. If we look at multifamily housing projects with 5 units or more exclusively, new builds skyrocketed up 28.6%. Another reason this temporary uptick shouldn't be interpreted as a cause to relax is that permits for future home building projects were down 10% at the end of the summer. As we look forward, we can expect to see even tighter inventory in the affordable housing markets as a result, even as homes at higher price points sit on the market for months at a time. Starting in March 22, Federal Reserve started raising interest rates. This makes borrowing, including borrowing via mortgages, more expensive. Not true. Not necessarily true. If rates are clearly 7.12%, Jono, how can you say it's not true that borrowing via mortgage more expensive? Here's the deal. And we've talked about this. We just had a buyer close where, because of the season that they bought in and because of their ability to wheel and deal with the sellers, we were able to negotiate on the buyer's behalf that the sellers pay cash at closing, that the buyers then used to buy down their interest rate. Effectively, the sellers bought the rate down for the buyers. Just because you see mortgages at 7.12%, don't assume, number one, that all mortgage providers charge the same rate, because they don't. Number two, the fees associated with that mortgage are going to be different with different mortgage providers, different lending institutions, different banks. And number three, I don't remember what I was talking about. Let's look at it this way. Back in the craziness, right? When we were in Q1 of this year, when I had my listings, it was very common for real estate agents to call me and say, are we wasting our time sending you the offer? These guys are FHA. These guys are VA. Now, my answer to them was absolutely not. Send the offer. But the reason they're saying that is they've had so many times that they were submitting offers on behalf of those clients that they wouldn't even get a second look, because real estate agents were telling their sellers conventional is the way to go. There's lending requirements on FHA and VA. All things considered, you're getting a better deal on the conventional offer. Down payment assistance on those other guys. These guys have cash. They've got a lot of reserves. This is a strong offer compared to these others. Real estate agents, listing agents were telling people that. Well, now the tables have turned. VA borrowers, FHA borrowers, these sellers, they're not even getting offers. So if they can just get somebody to invite them to the prom, they're excited. And their willingness to lean in and help those borrowers that are government-backed securities, VA, FHA, those guys, man, they're excited to talk to them. And they're willing to wheel and deal a little bit. Now, a lot of people that were just priced out of the market were priced out because they didn't have cash reserves to make up the difference. The sale price and what it appraised for. They have to have cash to make up that gap. And they didn't have that. Because they didn't have any cash, which is a lot of times one of the reasons folks were going either FHA or VA. So because the market has shifted, sellers are more willing now to not only entertain those offers, but they're excited to see them and they want to see what they can do to create a true win-win. It's still technically a seller's market just because of what inventory numbers are. But if you're buying right now, are you going to pay a higher interest rate? Not necessarily, and that's my point. What I'm saying is, just because the rates are in the sevens doesn't mean that's what you're going to pay. Depending upon the house that you buy, and depending upon the sellers that are selling that house, and depending upon what emotional leverage we can get with them, we might be able to tell them, hey, we'll give you your full purchase price, but we want you to provide a concession at closing so these guys can buy their rate down and get into something that's going to make their payment more affordable. An extra $1,000 a month may not mean that big a deal to you, but it means a lot to some people that are month to month, right? Like, I have been there. I know what that feels like. And I'm not here belittling anybody. But if you're thinking we can't afford the price because the rates are in the sevens, you are giving up before we've had a chance to see what opportunities exist. I'm just saying that. And you know what? That's fine. People give up all the time.
Quitting while you're ahead, it's not the same as quitting.
Here's the thing. I'm not belittling anybody for saying you're a quitter. What I'm saying is people give up all the time, and their reasons for doing so are varied. Maybe you're giving up because you've been beat up by a real estate agent, and that sucks. Real estate agents are like chiropractors. There are more bad ones than there are good ones, but when you find a good one, you lean in on that. And are the majority of real estate agents out there jackwagons? In my experience, yes. So if you're truly interested to see what your situation looks like relative to this market, where in this market you're looking for, what price point, what interest rate, your credit situation, your cash position, and ultimately the property that you choose, all of those are factors that can attribute to your opportunity. And if that's too much to deal with and you're just not willing to give it a shot and you'll try again in a year, wonderful, do that. I think that's great. We just want to provide value, and hopefully this is valuable. All right, well, let's put a pin in this. Hopefully that was helpful. If you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button, turn on notification bell. We don't want you to miss any time we drop content, which is 3 times a week in long form on YouTube. And hit the like button if you appreciate this content. Otherwise, here's a note from a man, Ice Cube.
Bye, Felicia.